Very rarely do I ever bother to talk about things that were said by people in conspiracy theory circles, or particularly InfoWars. However, this one is particularly sticks out in my mind. It's a statement by Paul Joseph Watman that if the police are kneeling, then therefore the whole Black Lives Matter movement must be very establishment. Of course, this is very much a non sequitur. The way the mind of Paul Joseph Watson works, and the way it works for many conspiracy theory people, is that if something does not add up in their ideological position or worldview, then it must be a conspiracy. If it doesn't make sense, it must be some kind of terrible plot. They don't ever see themselves as possibly being wrong. And that's one of the things that's wrong with people who don't have a real ideology. The things they think, the things they do are not consistent. They don't flow with a logic for themselves. So everything outside their view must therefore be a conspiracy. Let's look at the facts. Sure, there have been reports of police kneeling with protesters in solidarity. Yet at the same time, the police in the United States, since the George Floyd protests began 20 days ago, have killed 120 people. That's 120 people in 20 days. Now, does that seem like the actions of someone that's showing solidarity with the protesters? No, it doesn't. The actual real manifestation of the police actions since the protests completely contradict what it is that the police are doing with these photo ops. So, did Paul Joseph Watson deliberately discard reality, the facts of what police are doing right now, in order for his ideological or lack thereof ideological viewpoint to make sense, that it must be a conspiracy? In fact, the real explanation is far more simple than that. Believe it or not, the police are just being disingenuous. This is a photo op, a propaganda move. They're more than likely being told by their chiefs, by the heads of their particular law enforcement organizations, to go ahead and do this, to try to placate the public somewhat in order to reduce possibly the amount of violence that they would carry out. To Paul Joseph Watson, it must be that the police are on their side. It cannot be the police were being disingenuous. This is also another problem that a lot of police apologists, which in this case would certainly describe Watson, tend to feel. That even the most small, insignificant, cosmetic reform must be some great, huge tribute, when in fact it could just be disingenuous. And from here we can see much of how the conspiratorial mindset actually works. If their opinion does not match reality, then there's something wrong with reality. It is not that their opinion or their analysis is incorrect. It must be a conspiracy. We do see this kind of thinking from the bourgeoisie, except theirs is a little different than from a conspiracy theory person. For example, there is no real uprising in terms of Black Lives Matter and people being upset about being killed by the police, because nobody could be really angry about that. According to the right wing, it's all Antifa, and Antifa is funded by George Soros, an accusation they make with literally zero evidence. Their only evidence is that, well, Soros puts money into anti-racism activities, so therefore Soros must be funding the anti-capitalists that are supporting BLM. I mean, this is a complete non sequitur. This is tantamount to saying, well, you know who also drank water? Hitler. At the same time, the Democrats are doing the exact same thing, but they're doing it in a much more sly manner. There's nothing wrong with our system. Yeah, maybe there's some racism, but you know, we'll take it out. But you know who it really is? Russia. Russia is trying to sow discontent in our society. We would have people protesting peacefully against these abuses, and they wouldn't be violent, but it's that agitator, Vladimir Putin, that's actually doing it. And that's a statement that a lot of top Democrats have actually made. Both of these viewpoints are not just incorrect, they are deliberately so. They are completely ignoring the fact that African Americans have been tremendous victims of police violence, and that if you keep being murdered by someone, they're going to lash back, even violently, when they've had enough. And that's where this violence is actually coming from. It is not Antifa's fault. If you brutally oppress a people long enough, they will be violent. I mean, this is just common sense. But in both cases, you have the Republicans who are trying to whitewash this by saying it's all Antifa's fault and none of this violence will be happening, and probably the Democrats are behind it, etc. And the George Soros, because George Soros is fun to blame for absolutely everything, even though people don't ever think critically about what he's doing whatsoever. And the Democrats are saying, well, you know, the rioters, they're not bad. They're not really rioting. It's just Russia interfering with them, and we'd have just the peaceful protests, and we could all happily get along and make all the bad stuff go away. With the bourgeoisie, it's a deliberate falsehood in order to push their particular worldview. For conspiracy theorists like Watson, it's that they can't come to terms with the fact that their position is wrong. When their ideology or their viewpoint or their opinion does not match reality, they question reality, not themselves. And that is a true hallmark of a conspiracy theorist mindset. Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.